Welcome to this special episode of Mental Health Today. It is the day after the election, and Donald Trump is the winner. And first of all, here we are. We are not the news media, and we can honestly tell you the sky hasn't fallen. The day has dawned. You know, nothing has exploded, at least here. I mean, Donald Trump won the election. Let's all calm down and let's just move forward. And from a mental illness perspective and a mental health perspective, that's what we're going to talk about here today. And Tony, first of all, I think the first thing about this election that really stands out to me is, despite the statistics, despite the numbers, one thing we know is that when you are not happy in your life, when you are in pain, you want something to change.
Yes.
If everybody was happy, if everybody felt good about things, Hillary Clinton probably would have gone in, because she was running on Obama having had a successful 8 years, and that's not the way people felt.
Well, I think the key too was Trump never diverted from his initial message. His initial message was always change. And for me, I'm a registered Democrat. I voted for Trump. Not only because I'm sick of Obama. With the Obamacare thing, that was my biggest factor, was Obamacare is useless and needs to go away. So I voted for Trump. I knew my vote wouldn't matter in the state of Maryland. But I felt that he was the best person for the job. Now, the interesting thing, and my message and our message to the mental health community, is don't panic. There's no reason to. We've always kind of preached about the alternative forms of medicine. Now, the very telling thing for me about the election was, I enjoy all the election crap. I was flipping between two different networks. One network had Trump way ahead and winning the election at like 1 a.m. Another network had them just holding out and refusing to... they would even refer to other networks that had given Trump states. And Lester Holt and Chuck Todd are sitting there going, well, we're not willing to do that yet. And Chuck Todd was in such a panic. There was a few times during the segments where he would get up from the thing in front of the camera and literally walk away and get on his phone. But what I'd like to talk about, while I was doing research on the numbers, the top 10 states in this country with the highest suicide rate. Now, Hillary has a plan for mental health. She had a plan for mental health and wanted to enact it. I did not like it because her and her husband do a lot of talking. And very little doing. So I didn't believe it. I didn't, the fact that Trump only had a plan for veterans bothered me, but it made me happy at the same time, because our mission is to tell people there are alternative forms of medicine out there.
Yeah, and for veterans, there are a lot of free support groups.
Yeah, and you look at the, so anyway, the top 10 states with the highest suicide rates, you would think would go to Hillary, based on that one fact, with her healthcare plan and her plan to help mentally ill people. 9 of the 10 states went to Trump, and went to Trump hardcore. We're talking 30, 40-point wins. Okay? Hillary wasn't counting on that. Hillary was thinking, oh, I'm going to lose this state, but I might lose by 10 or 15%. And she was losing by 30 and 40% in those states. I also found, even though it's not surprising to most people, it was surprising to me. Hillary won 8 of the top 10 most violent states in this country very convincingly, just like Trump did with the mental illness. She was winning by 30, 40, and in D.C., of course, 90 points. I found those numbers interesting because it was like, okay, so the violent cities still want chaos. The mentally ill people want change. So that tells me the mentally ill people are more important than the people causing ruckuses and not paying attention to our society. and not following the laws of our society.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what the problem is, and I don't think this was what Hillary Clinton, I think, had a problem with that her husband did very effectively, was it's the economy. It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
Even though the employment rate is at 4.9%, we have to understand what the employment rate means. It means that it's so low because people are out of the workforce. That's why the percentage rate is so low. And then when you look at the people who are in the workforce and the people who are getting low wages still, and the price of housing is increasing, and the price of rent is increasing, and young people have to live at home because the student debt is over $1 trillion. This is an economic crisis. It began in 2008 when the global economy basically collapsed, and we are still feeling the pain from that, and we're feeling it in a slow way because the Federal Reserve and so forth, not to get too much into the weeds, but they've kept the interest rates low and the lights are on, but the jobs are not there, the wages are not there, affordability in housing is high, student debt is in the trillions, people are in debt. People do not feel like they have money, and there's the income inequality factor, and those are the people who are saying, this isn't working, I'm tired of the slow recovery, and we need something to happen fast.
This is exactly why I voted for Al Gore. Okay? It's the exact same situation. I voted for Al Gore because I don't like Bush's policies, and I never did. And either the father or the son. And I didn't like Gore either. It was a very similar situation. But I voted for Gore because I was tired of the same things going on. And I felt very empowered by that. When I left, I'll tell you what, voting on Election Day is one of the most powerful feelings that I've ever had. Even leaving, knowing when I left Olney Swim Center, I felt so good and so accomplished. Even though I knew my vote wasn't going to matter in the state of Maryland. Because I was letting my voice be heard as a mentally ill human being, saying, I'm not going to put up with this, because I'm a person of action. I'm not a person anymore who runs to the psych ward every time I have a problem. I'm not a person that's going to run to the psychiatrist and say, give me a pill.
Right.
I'm a person of action, and that's what I'm encouraging the mental health community to do now. Don't sit on your ass. Get off your ass. Find these free support groups. Utilize our show. Utilize NAMI. Utilize AA, NA, any of those programs that are totally free. They are so important to my recovery and where I've come in the last year. And I want to share one thing with people, and I know I'm being very vague, and I apologize, and I'll get into it more at another episode down the road. I'm about to go through one of the biggest changes anyone in the world could possibly go through in their life. I'm not running out of state. I'm not running to the hospital. I'm utilizing my support groups and saying, please help me get through this until I can stand on my own 2 feet. The amount of help I'm getting, even just by having an ear to listen to me, keeps me going every day.
Yeah, and we talked about this, and Hillary Clinton didn't come out to concede or to speak to people last night. The head of her campaign, Podesta, came out, John Podesta, and he said, go home, we're going to get through, go home, and we'll work this out. We both agree that she was so devastated by this that she just couldn't get out and talk to people.
Yep.
I don't blame her. I really don't. If she's that upset, if she was that devastated, if she couldn't come out and feel like she could handle it, look at all the people out there who go through stressful episodes and have to deal with this. And they're in a situation like that, and they need time to do it. So, time to deal with it, time to understand it. This is what we're talking about. there are some people who aren't doing that because they have to come out and give a speech and they're running for president. I mean, they go through crisis episodes, and then those traumatic episodes turn into huge events, going to hospitals, having to go through a whole treatment. It costs a lot of money. Now, Hillary Clinton had the support of her team, of everyone there. She had time. She was able to sit there outside of the public eye and then regroup, come out today, speak to the public. You could hear in her voice the pain that she went through. But I'm just saying that this is a sample of a stressful episode that can affect anybody.
Allow me to play devil's advocate, though.
Okay.
In politics and in celebrity life, you are held to a different standard than someone like you and me.
Mm-hmm.
We can have, for instance, 2 weeks ago when I had the bad mental episode and couldn't film the show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We only have 60, 80 viewers from week to week.
Right.
So it wasn't that tragic. Now, had the week before's episode gotten 1.6 million views, you would have looked at me and been like, oh, I need you to suck this up. We got to ride this wave.
Yeah.
My point and what bothered me, it was an anticlimactic moment because I was staying awake, trying to keep my eyes open because I wanted to hear Hillary come out and I wanted to hear how she was going to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if she was going to lose it on stage or something like that. My argument, and I'm just speculating, I think Democrats are more likely to listen to media than Republicans. Okay, so the Democrats were listening to the media and saying, man, this is going to be an easy win. When it didn't come so easy, I have a feeling that her campaign manager didn't have a concession speech. They only had a victory speech. So in order to handle it, she called Donald Trump, conceded the election, sent her person out on stage, and he didn't concede it. He said, we're going to go home, go to bed, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Kind of like a parent telling, go upstairs and go to bed and we'll talk about it tomorrow.
So you're saying that her real concession was then, and it wasn't later in the evening? Like
I just truly believe that once she saw the way everything was forming, and as soon as she lost Florida, she had to have been in that room just going, oh my God, it's only midnight and I lost Florida. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And when she realized there was nothing to do, I found it interesting. I showed you a clip. They're rioting in Oakland, California right now. And last night they were setting cars fires. They were throwing crap into things. The Black Lives Matter movement, actually I was reading an article on Facebook. They pulled a couple white people out of a car in Louisiana and were beating them. You know, just because Hillary lost the election. Now, my funny thing was, and I wanted to get an idea. I have a person in my life who voted for Donald Trump, and they didn't vote for them until they got to the booth. You know, when I went down to vote, the person told me, they said, I'm going to decide when I get in the booth. And afterwards, I asked them, I said, well, who did you vote for? And judging by the look on the person's face, I was like, you voted for Trump, didn't you? And the person said, shut up. You know, and they're, but they said, yeah. And I wonder how many people actually did that, because there is no argument in the sense that the majority of us hated both candidates. You know, the majority of us, we had problems with the liar, we had problems with the arrogant businessman who told it like it was.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm perfectly satisfied with everything. I'd rather have someone who's going to tell you like it is in the White House than a liar.
Yeah, and then you said at the beginning, and I agree with you. It's like if you're thinking about mental health and oh no, what's going to happen now? I don't think it's time to panic. I think that now is the time.
Action.
Yeah, I think now is the time to understand from different perspectives what you need to do to feel better. We're examples of that. We're examples of two people who have mental health issues, and we build support groups. Through those support groups, you build honest, trusting friendships. where you're able to speak with somebody outside of the therapist's office because you only get an hour with the therapist.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm also an advocate of social workers. I think social workers.
I am now too.
Okay.
I wasn't before, but with your view,
licensed clinical social workers, they focus on the environment. I think the environment obviously has a lot to do with it because people are not in good economic shape. Believe me, it's not about them. It has a lot to do with the environment.
A person who's a social worker, and I didn't.
And they don't cost as much.
I didn't come to this view until speaking to you and hearing your views, but a person who's a social worker is so much more beneficial for someone like me, not a doctor, not a psychiatrist, not a therapist, because if you read the medical papers that I've had throughout the years done on me with all the medical findings on my condition and everything, they said that I have serious organizational issues, you know, and I'm really bad at organizing even thoughts. Well, a social worker really, I had an experience after PIW where they had a social worker for me. She pointed me in the direction of the free Medicare Part B thing that I could get where they'll reimburse me the money because I don't make enough. She pointed me in the direction of Cornerstone Montgomery. She pointed me in the direction of NAMI. You know, that the social worker was so good for someone like me who kind of sits there and goes, I don't know what to do. My life's falling apart. What the hell do I do? Which is why I was always running away. But the social worker was great because the social worker was like, just do A, B, C, and D, and if you have an issue, give me a call.
Okay. Yeah.
So I am definitely pro social worker.
And on the other side, you see psychiatrists who are giving people loads of medication. 6 or 7 different medications because this one needs that medication, that medication needs that medication, that medication needs that. Yes, there are some psychiatrists out there who actually, they're not too expensive. They understand that sometimes medication is because you have anxiety and you need to relieve that anxiety. You have depression and you need to relieve that depression. But you don't have to go to them all the time. They don't have to give you 10 million pills. We'll talk more about this. But my point being that once again, this is about being able to find environments that you feel comfortable in. Third point on this. This will be my last point and I'll let you get yours in. But okay, so mental illness, a lot of it has to do with, how do you handle pressure? You're under extreme pressure. You have to go to work every day. There's pressure at work. Now, because of what's going on with the economy and what's been going on the last, and I'm not, Obama's not to blame for the economy. It wasn't his fault. But that being said, now more people are doing more for less. They're not getting paid as much. They need to keep their jobs. They need to keep their health benefits. And they're doing so much more and getting so much more stressed out. Even the person that can handle the pressure is getting even more pressure.
I want to give you an example of self-help and utilizing your support system instead of running to the hospital. And this may seem very small to a lot of you, but it's huge. I've not been diagnosed with it. I diagnosed myself with it because I can recognize it. I have very bad social anxiety. If I'm around people I'm not familiar with, people I don't know, I just go into a total state of panic. It can happen going to the store, a restaurant I haven't been to. Mike and I have had several conversations. I have to be in familiar surroundings to feel comfortable. That being said, I had to go to the grocery store recently. I had an overwhelming feeling of anxiety. The store was crowded, I have friends that live across the country, and I was on Facebook Messenger while I was walking up to the store, and I was getting a little calmer talking to this person from Montana. I have friends in Montana, California, Arizona. I love West Coast people. They, if I can't get a hold of anyone, chances are I can get a hold of them. I got through the grocery store and doing what I had to do in a complete state of panic just because all I was doing besides getting what I needed, I was focused on my phone and focused on the person's messages to me, like just breathe, don't look anyone in the eye, So thank you to my Montana friend. But my point was that even though I had an extremely moment of crisis, because to you, when you're going through it, it's a massive crisis. I didn't need to not go. I didn't need to run to the hospital. I didn't need to avoid the situation. I just needed some support and help in saying, I have to get this done. Can you stay with me even on my phone for 20 minutes while I get through this? And it's exactly what they did. They didn't even think twice. It was a NAMI member, actually, from Montana. And
That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
yeah,
by the way.
so I love that. The fact that, once you have those support systems, and even then, if I'm texting you all day, and all of a sudden I call you, and you don't pick up, I'll text you back saying, you need to pick up that damn phone. Something's going on right now, I need you to stop what you're doing and pick up the phone.
Yep.
And you would, as would I. So I think that that's very important to remember here, is that these support systems, they actually make me feel stronger. Whereas I feel weaker when I'm going to the doctor and the psychiatrist and they're throwing pills at me. It's harder to get out of bed.
Yeah.
It's harder to, keep moving. I had an incident earlier a few days ago where I told you, I said, if this happens, I'm probably going to be in bed for 5 days. And I said, but I just wanted to warn you in case it does. And fortunately, things didn't play out the way they would have. But I'm curious with you.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Hillary not coming out and speaking last night. What are your views on that? I told you how I felt. Do you think it was just one of those moments where she's a human being and couldn't handle the situation, but do you think she should have been held to a higher standard?
I'll tell you the truth. No, I don't think she should have been held to a higher standard. Now, I see where you're coming from. Like, if she's going to be president of the United States and there's this extreme situation, she's got to come out and speak to the public. If the reason she didn't do that was because she couldn't deal with the pain of losing,
Right.
I understand how that says, well, should she have been president in the first place?
But I can also say it humanizes her, right?
Of course it humanizes her. Well, she is human. And that's something we forget, is that we're all human. This is all part of the human condition. And let me use that as a segue to go into thinking for yourself. You always say, you know your own truth.
Yep.
It's amazing how people don't think for themselves. And how do I mean that? Well, they watch the media. The media it can't be trusted. Because if it was trusted, that means that the CNN or Fox even, or MSNBC, or the nightly news, I wrote about this in an essay. If you want to read it, it's on Facebook or LinkedIn. But the fact of the matter is, nothing was talked about policy-wise. I mentioned it earlier. It's the economy. Was anything asked about interest rates, about the Fed raising their rates, and what would be the possibility of each candidate doing that? I heard in one of the debates, it was just thrown out there that Donald Trump said, what about raising the interest rates? And it just, to me, nobody caught it.
Yeah.
To me, it was one of the most important things he said during the whole thing. During all his stupid insults and all the stupid politically incorrect things he said, what about raising the interest rates? Well, what about raising the interest rates? If you raise them too quickly, you're going to have some problems in the economy. Doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. It means you're going to have some short-term pain, but there may be some gain down the road as opposed to a slow recovery. But these are the things that the public doesn't want to hear about. They want to hear about, oh, did he say this or he said that?
The controversy,
the insults, all of that they can get their arms around, but they can't get their arms around the economy.
Well, and it's just like they said, after the first debate shocked anybody because it was like, okay, well, what was really said? What did we learn? All we learned was that they hated each other. So the second and third debates were highly viewed only because they wanted to see the tension, they wanted to see the anger, they wanted to see the
Mm-hmm.
insults. Nobody was watching it to get any information.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that was a huge problem. NAMI, along with a few other organizations, had a petition going for the third debate to get a question asked about mental health. And I think it got like, I might be wrong, but I think it might have gotten like 500,000 signatures. It was quite a lot. It was quite a lot. Even if they listened and put that on the list, they never got to the end of the debates. You know, all the questions that were lined up to be asked,
Yeah.
they'd only get like 4 questions in and be like, oh, it's time to end.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
they were going back and forth, cursing each other out, basically. And my thing, though, is with all the panic that I'm seeing this morning, and congratulations to me, I've actually lost a Facebook friend because Trump won. But with all that being said, I think America got it right. I don't care that she won the popular vote. Nobody cared that Al Gore won the popular vote.
That's right.
So for Democrats to come out and say, "Oh, we won the popular vote," I don't care. You didn't win.
Yeah.
You didn't win convincingly in the states that you thought you were going to. I was a little shocked over Virginia, just because they did what I said that was going to be the overall thing. They were giving it to Trump the whole way, and then all of a sudden, they were like, "Well, where Loudoun goes, Virginia goes."
Well, yeah, that's
You
the
know,
way.
and they were like, but Loudoun County hasn't reported yet, so she wins Virginia.
Yeah,
and,
well-
and which was true. She ended up winning Virginia.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of assuming going on the Democrat side with Lester Holt and Chuck Todd, and this is why I hate you two. There was a lot of assuming going on, but then when it came time, and it's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're like, other networks are reporting that Trump has won Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, but we're not willing to do that yet.
Yeah.
We're not going to make that. So they were willing to assume on the Democratic side.
Yeah, right.
But when it came to the Republican side, they're like, oh, we're not going to assume anything.
Right. That's typical media. But
But Chuck Todd, it was so funny. I enjoyed watching it because Chuck Todd was so dumbfounded. He was having trouble coming up with anything to say.
yeah.
3 times getting up on live TV in front of the camera and walking away and getting on his phone.
Yeah, and here's another thing that you, when I watched the third debate with you, I watched the third debate, the other debates I watched, and it's interesting how we get into our own mode of this is our candidate, oh, look at them, they look fine and all that, and we look at it from our own perspectives, and then we listen to the stupid pundits, and they are all of them are, they're getting, I guess they're getting paid a lot of money so they can spout their opinions just like we're doing, only we're not getting paid a cent for it.
Right.
And they come up with these, analysis and all that. When I was watching it with you, I got a different perspective. And I'm not listening to the arguments, and I'm not listening to what they're saying. You were saying, look at how ticked off she looks.
Yeah.
Look at that gets to her.
Yeah.
You were watching her reactions. And when I saw that, I'm looking at the same thing. I'm going, I never saw that. I'm thinking too much about what they're saying,
Instead
and
of
you're
watching
looking
what they're
at what they're doing. And then they come on afterwards, and it was like the same line by the pundits. Oh, he was into it for the beginning, but then he did his thing for the rest, and he really lost that debate. And I'm thinking, no, it didn't look like he lost that debate because I had your perspective. And that's how a lot of the country looks at it. They're not just listening to the words.
Yeah.
They're not just listening behind, which, by the way, is all canned anyway. They're watching what people are doing, how they're acting.
And I think I pointed out to you in that debate, I said, look how many times she's looking straight down, reading. She's got asked a question, and she's rebutting, but she obviously knew it was coming because she just, in the third debate, she's sitting there and she's so uncomfortable. She spent most of it literally like she was looking down, looking up, looking down, and literally following a script.
Yeah.
Because she was so uncomfortable. She needed that script in front of her. Most of you who know me know that I observe people. It's one of my strengths. It's one of my gifts. We were at a support group recently where I came up to you and I was like, well, you know why that person left, didn't you? And you were clueless. And I'm like, all you had to do was look at what was going on in the situation. And that's why the person had gone. And I said, all you have to do is really watch people, and people say, how do you do it? And I was just, maybe I'm just a good judge of character. I don't know. Or maybe I'm good at reading situations. But when I see somebody and I'll be like, yeah, that person doesn't like me too much just based on their mannerisms or how they handle things when they're around me. That's a gift that I have. And that's why watching that debate with you, I'm sitting there laughing because you're listening to the words, and I'm like, you're missing a ton here.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going on.
Well, I think this is something that we should delve into in one of our future programs, and that is, they talk about educated white voters, educated voters, uneducated voters.
Deplorable human beings.
Deplorable human beings. There's something to be said about the difference between college educated and not college educated, and the people who are college educated who see more than they're not looking at. Oh, well, they said this. Oh, they're very intelligent. There's more to being a human being than just the words and being into. We talked about words, and we talked about political correctness in our previous episode, and we also talked about race. And I think it's interesting also that they got all hung up on Latinos who voted for Trump.
Yeah.
A lot of Latinos and African Americans, for that matter, are strapped, and they do have economic problems, and it's kind of like that whole thing about being deported and all that. Hey, we got bigger problems, like the establishment not helping us economically.
Well, I think the biggest problem, and I think we're pretty much in agreement on this, I think the biggest problem is the media. The media is so biased and so one-sided that you only get one side of the story. This election's proof positive that, rural America was completely ignored.
Yeah.
And they said rural America is not going to show up.
Yeah.
Well, rural America showed up.
Yeah.
And the thing that I also like is, and I hope that I actually look forward and embrace the fact that a lot of you might call me racist after this statement, but all the states where the KKK is prevalent, and we all know the KKK endorsed Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And then he said, I don't want it. Okay. Well, he won those states. Very big. 69 to 28, 64 to 21. I mean, they were huge numbers. My point to that was that there's a lot more people in this country with a KKK mentality than most people think.
Okay, well, that may be true. But I think also what this election did was open the curtain, so to speak, or open the door, and I think we've got a lot of truths. Thinking of truths, we got a lot of truths from this election. And this has been true for a long time, and that is that the Republican Party, the racists have come out of the Republican Party. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And they happen to have voted for Trump. He's not the first person to get the racist vote in the Republican Party.
Well, and nobody had a problem with, Obama. A ton of people that first election, a ton of people that I know voted for Obama just because he was black.
Yes.
Okay? And a ton of people that I know who had no argument about Hillary, and if you brought up the lies and the WikiLeaks and all that other stuff, they would just deflect the information. But a lot of people that voted for Hillary this time around, and last time, they were only voting for her because she was a woman.
Let's go into that for a second.
I think that's an important
She did not get the young vote. And she may not have gotten the young woman vote, and I'll tell you why. Because what I've seen in my experience, and maybe you've seen it too, is that young women have a big problems with their mothers.
Yeah.
They do not get along well for whatever reason, because their mother is doting on them, because they can't deal with it. There's a lot of anger there. And I think that Hillary comes off like the older mother. And women see through it, and young women see through it.
I agree.
The young women are different than the women of the older generation.
And if you have someone coming across as a parent in any aspect of your life, this is actually how my marriage fell apart the first time around. If you have someone that comes across as a parent in any aspect of your life, that is going to cause you to run away. Okay? I got separated for the first time in my relationship because I lost sight of the fact that my wife was my wife. And I started thinking, you know, she's in the throes of addiction and all this other crap, and I have to find out all her lies and all that. Now that I'm past that, I feel so much more freer in the sense that I'm able to contribute to my relationships better because I'm not coming at it from a father point of view. One of the things Mike said to me last week that really affected me for about several hours, he said I was a very intelligent person and not very tolerant. And I thought of it when you mentioned about college educated, not college educated, because I think you also said to me that I was one of the smartest non-college educated people that you have met.
Yeah.
Which again, goes right up there on the list of compliments that I've gotten in my life.
Well, I've met a lot of people who haven't gone to college who are very smart.
But one of the great things about it was I'm dealing with, here's my dish. And my dish has some items on it. And I'm just dealing with focusing on eating the food on the plate. I'm not trying to go get more food. I'm not trying to dump the food away or feed it to the dog. I'm just trying to sit there and eat my plate, let everything digest, and just sit there. Too many of us mentally ill people go into the throes of panic way too quickly. An example of that was the other day when I contacted you, and we're sitting there going, it's Sunday. We're supposed to be enjoying football.
Right. Well, how about this? How about the throes of panic that everybody's in after this election? Like, oh my goodness, what's the world going to come to?
Right.
You know, this is again the media. You're Republican, or you voted for Trump, I voted for Hillary. Right. We get along fine.
Yep.
Stupid politics.
Now, if we knew each other just on the internet, it'd be a lot different.
It would be.
It'd be a lot different.
It would be. And that's part of the problem with the media, and social media comes right into it.
Yep.
I have a few friends who's voted for Trump. I get along great with them. Why they voted for Trump? I said, I have no clue. Well, I voted for Hillary because I thought she was qualified. But going back to that debate, your perspective, I understand the perspective.
Yeah.
And
that just shows me that more people are like me than I thought.
And that's true too. Look, this isn't about the people.
Nope.
This is about the media.
Yep.
And this morning, Kellyanne Conway was talking to Dana Bash. And Dana Bash on CNN, she says, do you think then that the media is causing this divisiveness? And Kellyanne Conway was very, she was political about it. And she said, I didn't say that. Well, I'm saying it. Yes, you are divisive.
Absolutely.
The media is very divisive.
Especially one of the things I found interesting, you people at WUSA 9 in DC, I now know why I don't watch your network. I like you on Facebook, so I get a lot of your things. And all day today, it's not been, well, we got it wrong, or take some accountability and responsibility. They're feeding into it. They're going, they posted an article, these 15 celebrities, are leaving the country because Trump's in charge. What are you going to do with your life now that Trump's in charge and all this other stuff? But the people who voted for Hillary Clinton, I have something to say to you. You're not going to, as you're upset today and complaining and whining and bitching and moaning, you won't be complaining in January when he lowers the tax rate. And also, my prediction is every tax-paying American is going to get a check. I think the last person that did it was Bush. I think it was like a $680 check for like everybody.
Yeah, only in this case, maybe they need it now.
Yes,
I didn't think they needed it back then.
But I think that that's what's going to happen, and I think that you're not going to complain when you get that check. I'm hoping that he does do with Obamacare and gets rid of it. If he doesn't, it kind of shoots himself in the foot right off the bat, because he really preached about, Obamacare is a disaster. And I agree with him. The premiums are through the roof. That's why I had to find alternative forms of medicine. Yeah.
And if any people who are watching this, and I'm sure there aren't, who are connected to the mental health insurance companies, I would suggest looking into supporting financially free support groups, because by supporting free support groups and nonprofit agencies that help with mental illness, you will be saving yourself a ton of money.
Yes. And with,
by sponsoring.
One of the yeah, but one of the other things that I find interesting is the feedback that I have gotten from our show.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves the Truth with Tony segment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked to you about it, and it was like, business wise and things we had to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I see why they like it, because I see similarities between Trump and myself.
Yeah.
To where we're just willing to say, this is how it is. And if you don't like it, do something about it. If you like it, just shut up. But if you don't like it, don't sit there and whine and cry. Do something about it.
Yeah.
And I had to do that. I had to go find these programs. I didn't want to see Dr. Lowy at PIW again. I did not want to see Dr. Bell at Montgomery General again.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say, okay, how can I be proactive about my illness? Stop bitching and moaning and complaining and say, okay, I'm stronger than I give myself credit for. So I need to utilize these groups and these free groups. I had to call the Montgomery County Hotline 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Spoke for them for 15 minutes. Felt better. Was like, all right, I'm good. I can keep moving.
And don't have to worry about them sending the police to your house.
Right.
To
And
handcuff you. And
one of my favorite sayings recently that I've been really preaching to everybody. Everyone wants to talk about is the glass is half full, the glass is half empty. Those people on this election day after, or whatever you want to call it, those people that want to sit there and say, oh, we're in so much trouble, the glass is not half full. The glass is not half empty. The point is, the glass is refillable. And I love that saying.
Yeah.
Because it's more of how you look at things. If you have a negative thought process to everything, you're always going to end up down in the dumps.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it. I'll even be trying to move positively forward, and sometimes kind of take a few steps back. And people like you, people like Scribbles, people like my friends, they're the ones pulling me up. Mm-hmm. And saying, no, man, you're better than this. You can do this. Yeah. And just that simple little thing is amazing to me what it does. So I would suggest that, you got to give this time. Everybody, he's not going in the office until January. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of preparation that needs to be involved. And, Channel 9, the one article that, I don't want your opinion on this, they posted an article from Huffington Post that says, it was aimed at teachers and parents, and it says, what to tell your children now that Trump has won the election. I read the article and I was livid. Mm-hmm. It's encouraging parents to lie to their kids, and I'm just sitting there going, are you freaking kidding me? And I said, how about just being honest and, saying, let's not all go into panic now. Dude, he's not even in office yet and everybody's losing their mind.
Yeah, well, this is what we're talking about. I think I'm going to talk about, I plan to talk about this more in my take this weekend. Parents, act like adults, please. I know I have no place saying that because I'm not a parent, but please act like adults and understand that this is politics. He's the president of the United States. What's your kid going to ask you? What do you answer them? My point would be to answer them, he probably didn't mean a lot of the stuff he said.
Yep.
We'll have to wait and see how he acts and how he acts as the president, and we'll find out. Don't panic. Don't worry about it. There's nothing wrong. Everything is fine. If you're a Democrat, I'd say he can't do much worse than George W. Bush. And if you're a Republican, I'm sure you're already happy that he is in the presidency. So, no, I wouldn't panic about it. I'd panic more about a guy who sends people to war, has thousands killed, they come back after tours and tours with post-traumatic stress disorder and are committing suicide.
Right.
I'd worry about somebody who allows the economy to run amok so that there's the worst economic collapse since the Great Depression. That was George W. Bush. Do you think that Donald Trump's going to be worse?
Good point.
I don't think so.
Good point. And that's an excellent point. And again, I'm a person who I've changed a lot in the last 10, 11 months. And the intolerance that you were speaking of that I have has helped me get to where I am. So I consider it a strength. And it also helps me weed out the BS. And weed out the people who are bad for me. I'm in a very changed mode right now where I'm changing anything and everything about my life that is causing me uncomfort. And just the fact that for the first time in 23 years, the person that I want in the White House got in, I'm elated.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, you know, to all the people who are going up in an uproar, it's like, man, let him move into the White House first before let's see what he does in his first 100 days before you make a judgment, before you know.
Yeah. And Tony, I'll tell you, as I've been in the last about 11 months or more in the last year, and I've been following certain steps and principles and you know, working certain ways, clearing my head, a little bit of intolerance is good. Because what it does is it does help to clarify things, to create your own truths, like you mentioned. And so when I watch the media now and I watch some people talk about it, I'm not like, oh, they're on TV, so I got to listen to them. Kind of like we are. But of course, you already know you don't have to listen to us.
Right.
But the point being is that you make your own decisions. And I see people on TV now and I say, I can't stand that person. I can't stand that person. I can't stand that person.
Right.
Because a lot of them are hypocrites. A lot of them are upset that Trump won. And I'm saying, if you're so upset, you shouldn't have been a pundit.
Yeah.
You should have given your check back or no longer taken your salary, got up, didn't give your opinions anymore because you're part of the problem. You're part of Dr. Frankenstein who created the monster, the so-called monster. You guys are the part of the problem. If you don't like it, get up from your seat, go, don't be a pundit. But it's such an easy job and it's such a fun job. Why would you do that?
Along the lines of the election, and there is part of the election I would like to talk about that wasn't national, or at least not to me. 4 states had legalization of marijuana on the ballot.
Oh yeah, what happened?
All won convincingly.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Now that California has done that, I have a prediction for you. 4 years from now, it's going to be on at least 25 state ballots to legalize marijuana.
You know why that is.
And you know what's going to happen? It's all going to get approved.
Yeah.
And next to a Starbucks now will be the weed coffee shop.
Yeah.
You know.
You know why that is, though.
Why?
Money.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
But I think that I also think it's because most of America doesn't consider weed harmful.
Well, it's as harmful as alcohol, if not. A lot of people consider it less harmful. But the point being, if you can make money off of it and give it to the state, which have very little money, let's get back to the whole pain issue and why people voted for Trump. If it makes money for the state, they're looking for money, and it's not that harmful.
Now, 3 states, all 3 of the 5 states that had it on the ballot, the money goes to the school system. Kind of like Maryland with the lottery.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. As well it should.
Yeah. So, but the interesting thing to me is with the lottery, for instance, with Maryland, Montgomery County used to be the top county in the country in terms of school systems. They're nowhere near the top now. So obviously the money didn't help. I think Howard County's been growing faster than Montgomery County. You
know, we talk about mental health prevention and how it starts in the schools, and I mean, we can go to facts that you're kind of the internal person. You get psychologically fulfilled or nurtured from 0 to 3 years old. And after that, then you go to school and so forth and so on. And then you run into problems. My bottom line here is that mental health prevention, we believe, comes in the schools. And so money going into the schools to create mental health prevention is a good thing. And again, a lot of doctors will agree with this. The #1 killer, maybe next to cigarette smoking, is stress. So if you're able to prevent mental illness, and maybe if you're able to prevent the person from getting completely stressed out and able to cope with daily situations, maybe insurance companies won't be spending as much in the future, and maybe people will be healthier for it if we can put it into the schools.
When our book comes out, I think not only is it and I know people will say, well, it's your book, so you should feel this way, but I honestly, truly believe that this book we're working on and about to finish is going to explode. And the fact that Donald Trump is in office makes it even better. Because people need to realized they need to be proactive. And I'll talk about it in a future episode that I'm looking forward to doing on medicine and dopamine. People run to medicine too easily, and doctors, for me, it's all guesswork and a white coat.
Right.
You know, and because the doctor can only base it on what you're telling them.
Yeah.
And so I've chosen to live this way. No doctors, no emergency rooms, no this, no that. I want to just deal with my illness with my free support system and not have to pay anybody a dime. And guess what? I still get better. And the fact that that is the message, I think gives hope to the person who's laying in bed and can't get out of bed saying, you know, well, they can get out of bed, go to the doctor. Because they get the pills. And then they just go home, take the pills, and lay in bed 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
Well, my mission is, I'm not putting up with you. I'm not here for you. I'm actually here for the person who's getting out of bed and trying to move forward with their life. Now, if you feel you need a doctor, maybe one pill to help you keep going, I'm all for that. But as I've told you before, you take more than one pill, you're just treating the side effects.
Yeah.
But
a pill doesn't give you self-esteem and confidence.
Right.
It can help. It can help reduce anxiety. It can help it's not a complete panacea, but it can help to reduce some anxiety, to help to lift you if you're in a depression, so that you can move forward, so that you can become more self-confident, have more self-esteem. But that's the goal. And a pill's not going to get you there by itself.
And my last point to you, and I'd like your reaction. One of the things I did as last second research, we put this episode together very quickly and just said, let's do an election thing. I'd like to point out to you that, would you be able to tell me what day of the year has the highest suicide rate in the United States?
I will guess December 25th.
You are incorrect.
Oh, okay.
The day of the year that has the highest suicide rate in this country is today.
Oh, really?
The day after Election Day.
Oh, is it really?
Yes. Even though it happens every 2 years, because they were saying even in the local elections you see a lot of things that happen, you know, and stuff like that. But they were saying that the day after Election Day has the highest suicide rate in the United States.
That's really interesting.
It's telling to me because it shows you how many people just can't handle reality. And they're basing their decision on one simple thing that they don't have an answer to yet. You're not going to get an answer to, oh my God, why did they put him in office? Until he gets into office and you see what he can do.
There's nothing to fear but fear itself.
But I found it very telling that the day after Election Day has the highest suicide rate in the United States.
Well, I think that wraps up our Election Day special. I can only say, if you're watching this, that I'm sure you're taking things out of this that you agree with or you don't agree with. And that's what you should do. And you should do that watching any kind of media, any kind of television. Oh, and look at the world around you, by the way. People generally get along. I don't think people hate each other because they have different political views. You would almost think that everybody's entrenched in divisiveness. But basically people do get along. So that's another thing. When you're on the social media and you see somebody yelling at you and screaming things, they're not looking at you face to face. So get with it. This is the 21st century. Let's start learning about technology a little bit.
And one of the things I think is great for you and me is we are a walking example of two people who can have different views and have a middle ground on certain things. We don't have very many drastic disagreements.
No, we don't.
You know, and when we do, we discuss them.
Yeah.
And then we just go about our day.
That's
We don't
right.
threaten each other. We don't not talk to each other for 2 weeks because you're an idiot who doesn't know what you're talking about and stuff like that.
You
But
are allowed to disagree with people on
But
things.
my final message to Republicans and Democrats alike is this isn't about Republican and Democrat. For me, this is about mentally ill people. And I think that in my opinion, this is a wonderful election result for mentally ill people, and I know a lot of people don't feel that way. But it's going to make yourself see that you are better than what you think you are. And that you can change your life without having stuff handed to you and saying, here's your disability check, here's your medicine, go home and go to sleep.
Yeah. And one last thing that I'll end with. We had an episode about bullying. So this is to Melania Trump. If you want us to help you with bullying, we two schlubs will stand next to you and help in your efforts against bullying and cyberbullying.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things, my first thought when they said Trump won, I was like, well, cyberbullying's going to be front and center. And I said, I hope it extends. I hope she doesn't just stop at cyberbullying.
Yeah.
Because
you're the expert on bullying.
Yes, I am. And I laughed at it when I saw it.
You could be the bullying czar.
Because somebody actually posted on Facebook after Trump won the election, and it was on a friend of ours. We have a common friend. She's really into music and everything, but on her page, one of her friends commented, well, there goes all the bullying stuff because Obama's leaving. And I'm like, well, you obviously didn't see the Trump speech where she said she wants to attack cyberbullying.
Yeah.
So again, you had an uninformed Democratic candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what bothers me, is that people don't listen anymore.
Yeah.
And
people are headstrong on their ways. They're not willing to take a look at the other person's side.
So, America, I would like to thank you for helping me get Trump into the White House. I'm sorry for you, but your son came up this morning.
Honest to goodness,
your son came up this morning. You still did your work. You still went about your business.
No,
it's not the end of your world.
It's not at all. Believe me, when George W. Bush won 2004, after that, I said, I'm not watching any TV.
Right.
I did. This, hey, I'm in there. I'm going to help Donald Trump make America great again. I'm part of this country. I'm going to help do my part to make America great again.
So my final message to the voters and to the world out there, the media, you guys got to stop listening to them. You know, the media is so one-sided, it's disgusting, and they want you to believe what they want you to believe. I had a friend that did a 45-minute clip for Channel 4 News.
Yeah.
He was interviewed for 45 minutes. The story they did on him, they took a 3-second clip of one sentence he said in that 45 minutes.
Yes.
And it was nothing.
Yes.
They blew it into this own thing that they wanted it.
Yes.
And he came out and said in a newspaper article, he said, I did a 45-minute interview with these people, and they focused on this one sentence.
I can give you, we could do a whole show on the media. I've been in the media. I know, as a journalist, as a former journalist, I know exactly how you're able to spin it one way that you want a story to go. And it's even easier to do it when you're on television.
And if you've also noticed,
if you want to do it.
If you've also noticed with our show, we don't edit. Really, we don't. We literally keep the camera rolling and just keep talking.
We don't edit the content. We
so,
throw it out there, and you choose what you want to listen to, what you believe, and what you don't. And we want you to give your comments so that we can get some feedback.
Right.
Do you agree? Do you not agree? Why don't we have a little discussion about this,
please,
and then we can get something done.
But please, again, America, don't go into panic. There is absolutely no reason to panic. He's not even in the White House yet. Instead, I would be asking myself, just like he says, he's going to make America great again. I want to wake up in the morning now and say, how can I make my life great again?
Well said. And for Tony Clark, I'm Mike Murray. Hope you enjoyed this special edition of Mental Health Today, the special election edition. And we will be back for our weekly show. Next week's episode, the week's episode is going to be false paranoia. So that's coming up on our regular time. Hope you enjoyed the special election session, and we will talk to you soon.